In this video, we'll take a look at quantizing audio and MIDI data in Pro Tools. As we've discussed in previous videos, quantizing is the process of aligning MIDI notes or audio events to the Pro Tools grid. There are essentially three ways to use quantization in Pro Tools. You can automatically quantize recorded data using input quantize, and you can quantize data after recording using either the standard quantize command or MIDI real-time properties. We'll look at MIDI real-time properties in the next video. So one of the first concepts to understand when you're using quantization is the difference between quantizing to the grid and quantizing to a groove template. If I go to the Event menu, choose Event Operations, and then Quantize, the Event Operations window will open and I can see the quantize settings. Next, we'll click on the Quantize Grid pop-up menu. If you want to quantize to the standard Pro Tools grid, you can choose any of the note values you see here at the top of the pop-up menu. And you can further modify those values by enabling the dotted or triplet settings. If, on the other hand, you want to quantize to a groove template, you'll come down to the bottom section of the pop-up menu and choose the desired setting. Groove templates contain timing and dynamics information that have been extracted from a real performance. So applying these quantize settings will generally give your MIDI data a more natural rhythmic feel. Regardless of whether you choose to quantize to the grid or to a groove template, you simply select the desired setting and you're ready to go. One of the easiest ways to use Quantize in Pro Tools is to use input quantize to quantize incoming MIDI data while you're recording. In many instances, input quantize is all you'll need and you won't have to use any subsequent quantization. To enable input quantize, go to the Event menu, choose Event Operations, and then Input Quantize. Then in the Input Quantize window, select Enable Input Quantize. Then you can configure the rest of the options just like you would using the standard Quantize function. When you're satisfied with the settings, simply close the Event Operations window, and Input Quantize will continue to function in the background. Be sure to disable Input Quantize when you're finished recording if you don't want it to stay active throughout the recording session. If you need to quantize MIDI data that has already been recorded, you'll want to use the standard Quantize function. We can open the Quantize page of the Event Operations window by once again going to the Event menu, choosing Event Operations, and then Quantize. You can also directly open the Quantize window by pressing Option 0 on the Mac or Alt 0 on Windows. Then you can set the rest of the settings in the window and click Apply to quantize the selection. Next, let's take a look at quantizing audio clips without Elastic Audio enabled. First, I'll open the Quantize window, then I'll be sure to select Audio Clips from the What to Quantize pop-up menu. Next, I'll set the settings as desired. In this case, I want to quantize everything to a quarter note grid. Then I'll click Apply. As you can see, because Elastic Audio is not enabled, quantizing an audio clip will only change the clip start time. The internal data of the clip will not be modified in any way. Let's take a look at how Quantize works with Elastic Audio enabled. Here I've got a simple drum groove on a track with the rhythmic Elastic Audio plugin enabled. Next, I'll open the Quantize window. Then I'll choose Elastic Audio Events from the What to Quantize pop-up menu. And I'll set the Quantize grid to eighth notes. Then I'll click Apply. As you can see, the audio data inside the clips has been quantized to the eighth note grid. Let's take a listen to how it sounds. Pro Tools accomplishes this quantization of the audio data by automatically quantizing the warp markers and event markers that are closest to the quantized grid. It's actually applying small amounts of time compression and expansion between these markers in order to quantize the data. Now we'll take a closer look at some of the quantize options and parameters. Starting at the top of the window, we have the What to Quantize section. Here we can enable Note On, which aligns the start of the note to the nearest grid value, Note Off, which aligns the end of the note to the nearest grid value, and Preserve Note Duration, which will move the note on and off together to make sure that the original note duration is preserved. Below that, we have our grid and groove settings. First, we see the Quantize Grid pop-up menu, which we previously looked at. Next, we have the tuplet setting, which allows you to create note groupings like triplets or quintuplets. Then the Offset Grid setting, which allows you to shift the grid forward or backward in time by a specified tick value. This tick value can be negative to move the grid earlier in time, or a positive value to move the grid later. Then we have the randomize setting, which will randomly move notes forward or backward in time so that the note placement isn't quite so rigid. Finally, we have the options section, where we can enable swing, which adds a swinging triplet feel, include within, which will only include notes within a certain proximity to the grid, exclude within, which allows you to exclude notes within a certain proximity to the grid, and the strength setting, which determines if notes are moved all the way to the grid or are just partially quantized. So that's an overview of the Quantize function in Pro Tools.